most prestigious projects in Dubai, and that's super high rise. And then in India, we're also fortunate to be currently working in around 40 cities, and we're doing substantial amount of high rise projects across India. And high rise is something which we've been fascinated, since generations. Every empire who was successful, they wanted to have the tallest, they wanted to reach the sky, right from the Egyptians with the pyramid and then the Eiffel Tower. And then, every civilization who wants to show that, their supremacy, they've always tried to go and build something which is the tallest, So it's been a fascination, and it's been there for centuries. I mean, you even have like people want to buy expensive lands in prime locations, and they want to maximize the potential. Plus, they want to consume the FSI or the FAR or whatever to the maximum. The second is the iconic stature of these buildings. So all buildings in high rises define the skylines of the cities. And a lot of the cities are known by their high rise. They form, like the Singapore, you have, everybody talks of the Marina Bay Sands, and in Dubai, everybody talks of Burj Al Arab, and in Chicago, you have so many, in New York, you have so many. So everywhere people want, the high rises kind of define the identity of the city as well. So that's one of the other things that it creates iconic architecture. A lot of tourism also coming in. Kuala Lumpur, when they did the Petronas Towers, it became a big draw for people visiting Kuala Lumpur just to go up to the Petronas Towers. Now, those buildings are iconic. They are not just buildings, but they're also bringing in tourists, they're bringing in revenue, and they're also, charging the entire micro and macro real estate of those cities, because all the development around those skyscrapers also gets a big boost. So high rises, when they are done super tall, they're done with their intention. It revitalizes entire areas and entire cities. So what are the essential considerations in high rises? So we talk about, the foundation engineering, seismic resilience, because every places have a different seismic zone. We've done the tallest residential building in the entire Northeast. That is a seismic zone 5, I believe, which is quite prone to earthquakes. So there are challenges in terms of going vertical when you have, in a higher seismic zone. And then what are the kind of foundations that you're going to propose? What is the soil bearing capacity of those plots? Whether, but those are things which can all be worked around. Then wind is a very important challenge in high rises, because if you give resistance to wind, it creates larger stresses on the building. If the wind flows through the building in whatever way, whether it's a cutout or whether it kind of eases out the load. So wind loads are very important, important considerations while you're designing a structure for high rises. The other vertical circulation, very important, because we have everybody has to have minimum time to go up and down the building, and the number of elevators and the number of service lifts, it becomes very important, because the higher you go, the reliance on staircases and stairwells to go up and down is practically, just in case of an emergency, which is, not going to be used on a day-to-day basis. So the elevators become so important, and not all companies manufacture elevators which have low breakdown and low failure rates and are designed for high rises. So even that selection of what kind of elevators and how are they going to be, efficient is very important in high rise design. So the ground, when we talk about the foundation, again, it's the first thing that you need to look at, whether this kind of project can be actually built on this plot, and what are the precautions, or what is the kind of foundation that you need to look at. And generally also you have parking restrictions and you have parking requirements and you have to go multiple levels of basements. So the ground, the plot on which you're planning to build a high-rise building is very important. And we need to see whether the kind of soil can take or stone or strata can take that kind of load. Now the core is a very important part of any high-rise because the structural stability of the high-rise generally is with the design of the core. So if the core of the building is stable and it is kind of supporting taking the entire stresses of the structure, then the building becomes more stable. Most buildings, I mean, if you're going more than 2 lakh square feet, you have to have environment clearances. And with the norms that are specified for environment clearances, you anyways by adhering to all those things, you probably will have a certification, a green building certification would be very easy, and that's what we do in most of our buildings. High rises, as I told you, the recreational ground, the open spaces are important in every project. It's so important that people have these lungs of the building, of the area where people can actually go out and enjoy the outdoors. So since elevated podiums or elevated recreational, because mostly if you see these large buildings also have a large parking requirement, and with large parking requirement, it's necessary that even the entry exits, the flow of the parking and the circulation is such that the people in and out of the building, they don't have a large waiting time, and it becomes easy for people. So in some cases, we also even propose multi-level car parking, so parking buildings as well, where we need to go down multiple basements. We have a separate building which is connected by walkway or sometimes separate in its identity, where people can actually use those for parking. Today's high rises, they have challenges in terms of construction as well. And with high rise, you also need to look at solutions where you can kind of build faster, better, less, ease out on the labor, on the work, and to make sure that things are done in a way where we can, because safety and also the work. Now, a high-rise building cannot be done without good consultants. You need to work with good MEP, services consultants, structural consultants, lighting consultants, facade consultants, traffic consultants, landscape consultants. So it's a teamwork of engineering and aesthetics, and they all come together to produce a very efficient high-rise building. MEP is so important because with the challenges that you have with pumps, with air conditioning and water and reuse of water, how are you going to achieve all that? Because there's certain heights to which you can go in terms of your pumping and in terms of your machines. They have a capacity, so you need to have your services divided in a way that you can efficiently cater to set number of floors, and as well as have a building which functions well. Now, fire standards as well as fire safety is the prime and the most important thing that everybody has to look at, because of course there are NBC and National Building Code, and there's a fire code, and there's a fire NOC that you get from the fire department. But other than that, you need to look at things like smoke seals between your facade and the slab, so that avoids the smoke from coming up. As you heard before, the smoke is one of the biggest hazards. 2-hour fire rating, you need clear fire paths of escape, and you need to get people out of the building as soon as possible in case of a fire. At the same time, you need to have sprinklers, smoke detectors, and fire suppressors in whatever capacity is required to make sure that life is not lost of anybody in case of any emergency. And of course, sustainability is something which is so important to all of us and something that we need to do for the future of our next generation and of the people who we're going to leave the planet to. And I think sustainability does not necessarily, it's not averse to doing high rise. I mean, it's a myth when people say that if you're going vertical, you're not building sustainable. No, going vertical, you can still be very sustainable, and you can use the resources in a smart way. So this is another project that we're doing in terms of sustainability is, of course, rainwater harvesting. There's ample daylight, so we make sure that the windows are large so that there's a lot of daylighting coming in, so that reliance on electricity and energy is less. The accessibility is good because we have enough lifts and vertical circulation is there. We have a sewage treatment plant, so the sewage is treated. We use low VOC paints. We have energy efficient sanitary fixtures with sensors which don't allow wastage of water, organic waste management, solar panels on the top of the buildings which use that for the landscape, the garden, and emergency lighting, and multiple levels of green. And of course, the glass is very important because a good glass which solar analysis and study the orientation of the building and how we can maximize the light entering the building. As I told you, wind analysis and multi-level car parkings are something that probably works well where cost-effective high-rises have to be done, and we can't go down multiple levels of basements, which adds to the cost of the building. My1 shuttering or aluminium formwork, as it's called, is something which is a reality that most buildings today are using aluminium formwork, which is faster, which also reduces the need to plaster the buildings outside. It's easier to build, easier to use. The finishes are better, and it helps in high-rise construction because you can complete the building on time. You don't need to plaster. You save cost, you save manpower, and becomes easier to execute. Also, one of the important things that I think we need to look is the lighting of the facades, because all these buildings that we're building high-rise, you need to also think that at night they need to be, looking good in terms of as the iconic beauty of having a tall structure. And lighting of these buildings is so important today with having digital screens as well as having other ways of connecting people's attention towards these buildings and these beautiful facades, which also generate revenue as well. So I think there's something that is the way forward, where buildings itself, especially office buildings in the night, can be lit, and they can have a lot of media and graphics and visuals, which will add generation, generate income also for the maintenance of such buildings. Thank you.